Martin,
recording
what
now.
I have to say, I don't care where it is.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the meeting of the Executive Cabinet Member Leaders Portfolio, held in the presence of sportspersons from the other political groups at Bolton Council. Item 1 is the monitoring of Executive Cabinet Member decisions. Unless there's any commentary there.
There's quite a few that can come off. So improving the council mobile phone contract, the Horwich Health Hub car park funding, establishment of a programme management unit, and update on Family Town Centre development, business improvement review, corporate finance, and the quarters to the finance report 24-25 have all been completed.
Great. So just for the benefit of people who are all fair with what all that is, this is so that I and yourselves can keep track of what is on the agenda for decisions to be approved, and once those decisions are approved and going towards implementation, then come off that list. Okay, thanks, Vicky. We'll go on. Yeah, go on, David.
Just in relation to West Horton, I mean, we've had the invite for the meeting tomorrow. So that will be interesting to see, because obviously I raised the issue a month ago, actually. Just in relation to the road bit, TFGM, I know we had quite a good meeting with Graham Langley, Malcolm Forrest, and the lad's last name escapes me, Berry from Highways. I think the big bone of contention we all have as West Horton members is transport for Greater Manchester. And I would, ask officers when we're dealing with it, particularly when they come up with their ideas for the two junctions on Market Street, either end, that we have full upfront consultation with what TFG are coming up with, because there are far too many incidents of TFGM producing a scheme which is absolute dire rubbish and causes more problems than the ones they actually tried to solve. So that is our big concern, because if we knacker up either of those two junctions in West Horton, we have major traffic problems across the whole of West Horton. So I hope officers will remember that when they're dealing with TFGM, because they're useless.
All right, thanks for that, David. We'll now move on. We now have three finance items. So the first one is the aggregate financial monitor Q3 23 to 25. Who will be taking this item? Sorry, it's Graham.
Yeah, I'll take this, thanks, Leader. So the Q3 report sets out the financial performance up to the 31st of December this year. There are a couple of items I want to bring to members' attention. So first of all, the forecast is that the overspend at the end of the year will be just over £14.3 million against budget. Now, that is principally driven by a £13 million overspend in children's services. So we are aware, I'm sure, of the extreme pressures that children's services across Greater Manchester, in fact, across the country, are under, and that is being seen in the budget. I will point out that additional funding has been released to children's services during the year, and indeed in the budget that was approved a couple of weeks ago by Council. Further additional funding is being provided to children's services, but it is a substantial area of financial risk here. Obviously, at year end, we will be required to draw down extensively on reserves to cover that overspend position. In terms of the further details around where the overspend lies, you can see that in Appendix B in the report. In terms of the £8.5 million savings target that we had for this year, that has now been fully achieved, and you can see the details of that in Appendix C. The reserves position is shown in Appendix D, and that shows that at this point in time we're looking to draw down somewhere in the region of £53 million worth of reserves at year end, and leave us with around about £110 million of reserves. So we are using quite substantial amounts of reserves. That figure will probably be subject to change as we get to year end and we get some final confirmation of the spending figures at the end of the year. In terms of the DSG deficit, so that's the dedicated skills grant deficit. Members will be aware that we are part of the safety valve programme with the Department of Education to try and look at areas where we can improve that overspend, which is driven by special education needs expenditure. We started the year with an £18 million deficit against that fund. Unfortunately, that is forecast to grow to £24 million by the end of the year. As I'm sure Council is aware, there is currently a statutory override that allows us to leave that in a deficit position at year end. However, that statutory override is under consultation by the Department of Education, so we'll see what comes out of that, but you do need to be aware that substantial deficit position there. In terms of our capital expenditure, expecting to spend somewhere in the region of £89 million on capital this year. Again, you know, the details can be seen in the appendices, but in general terms, in terms of prudential indicators for the council, we are within line of the limits that were set by council earlier in the year. And at that point, I'm happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Graham. I mean, I'll just give a comment on that. We know that this huge growing demand in children's services, looked after children, and particularly is driving it, is not going to go away unless it's addressed at source. And this is something that's happening across the country. Is one of the major factors, that and adult social care increased demand is what is really pushing council finances across the country. So within that, I think it has to be welcomed that we did receive a ring-fenced children's social care prevention grant, and the council added revenue money to that so that we could have a prevention grant of year on year. This isn't a one-off of 3.8 million, because only by tackling problems at source, at root, and I'm talking about children who are literally just born, by putting inputs and help there into those families, do we, as a council and the rest of the public sector for that matter, save a lot of money down the line. And as I said, at council, it's not only financially sensible, it's also morally right for society that we do this, that we invest up front. So we're not going to see these overspends coming down in a hurry, but the economic model is that this investment will eventually, as people get older, with the benefit of this intervention, that money will start to reduce in time. And the other point that I need to make is a lot of the government's made some indications on this. Reform of the private sector in the looked after children's market is badly needed as well. It should be absolutely down to local authorities, children's services, and us not basically having no option but to pay these huge fees to private profiteers, as I said, on the whole, and out of borough as well, with Project Nightingale, I think it's called. Correct me if I'm wrong, that's the GM project, whereby we're working together with the other 9 authorities in order to build and bring on board council-owned assets and facilities to assist us with out-of-borough placements as well. So that is another factor that can save us money in this area. So there is an awful lot of work going on, but it will take years for this to feed through and realise those savings. Any further comments on that or anything else on the report, members? No. All right, thanks very much, Graham. The next item is the Treasury Management Q3 report for 24-25.
And I'll take that one again, Leader. Thank you very much. So the Treasury Management report at the end of 31st of December sets out our position in terms of the prudential indicators around Treasury Management and our performance on investment and borrowing. I'm happy to say that we are within all the limits that are set by Council. And at the current point in time, we have borrowing of £183 million. £25 million of that is scheduled to be repaid by the end of March. So that was short-term borrowing taken out last year. The remainder is longer term borrowing to finance things like the town centre regeneration. So obviously we only take out borrowing for very specific purposes and where we have a plan to do so. In terms of investments, at the end of Q3 we had £178.6 million worth of investments. So this will be money that we have received through grants and other sources that is not required at that point in time, and therefore we invest it to earn a return for the council to build up the funds that we have available to us. Of that 178.6 million, we have 33.6 million, which is what we call cash equivalent. So that is in accounts that we can draw down on a daily basis. We can get the money back straight away. The remainder is invested in fixed term deposits of no more than 12 months. So we do have quite a healthy balance in terms of the investments. Obviously that is producing a return for the council. Currently we're seeing returns of around 5% on our investments, which is a very good position to be in. Other than that, I have nothing else to say, but I'm happy to take any questions.
Thanks. I mean, it's just addressing that issue of investments. It's some people misunderstand what we are doing there. This is cash that we have that we're not ready to spend, so we may as well make it work for us. And it's a significant, well, it's not an unsubstantial income line for the council. So if we didn't do that, we would actually be making further cuts. So it's absolutely essential that we continue to do that. And these are low risk investments as well. We always receive a return on. Martin?
Yeah, thanks. Just I think you've spoke to me about this, Graham, before, but I just can't remember. We've got substantial balances and investments, as indicated in the report. So why did we find it necessary to take out 25 million in short-term borrowing?
So in the previous year, we had a change to the scheduled payment of the dedicated schools grant. So that's a very substantial amount of money that we're talking about, £250 million of funding that is handed to the council from Department of Education and then passed through to the schools. And the Department of Education changed the scheduling of those payments and notified councils, but unfortunately did not notify chief finance officers. So they notified schools and they notified education contacts, but didn't include the finance contacts. And the changes moved from a payment every 2 weeks, so there were 26 payments in the year as it was, to a payment, 13 payments. But what wasn't disclosed or wasn't made clear to finance colleagues, and this wasn't just a case of Bolton Council not picking up on this, this was an issue across Greater Manchester and across, certainly in the northwest and other areas, is that the 13th payment was not an equal payment. It was a catch-up payment at the end. So we'd be looking at moving from a payment of tens of millions of pounds to maybe a couple of £100,000. And what we found was that had a very significant impact on our cash flow. So obviously we have to ensure that we have sufficient cash available to us at any one time to make payments to our suppliers and obviously payments to our staff and obviously to pass money through to our schools. In addition, we also had a couple of capital schemes where the sequencing of the expenditure had not been as clear as it should have been. So we were, in all honesty, a little bit caught out by that. That was, if I'm perfectly honest, that's £25 million worth of borrowing, which I did not want to have to take out. So we took out some borrowing for a short-term period that we're now looking to pay back. But what I would say about that is it's very unusual that we find ourselves in that situation. It was a confluence of events that led to that. Fortunately, with the investment income we've generated, we've not seen an impact on our other budgets. We've been able to fund the cost of the borrowing from our investment income. Not ideal, but certainly hasn't had an impact on the delivery of services.
So
Thanks, Graham.
Thanks, Graham. What kind of feedback have we and other chief finance officers given them back to the DFE? Because obviously it's a lack of communication that's caused that. A problem that wasn't huge, but it just caused us problem with our cash flow. So how have we fed back our advice to them, shall we say?
Well, obviously there are contacts between the council and the Department of Education, so there have been conversations around, making sure that any changes to financing are addressed to chief finance officers and chief execs, if I'm honest. So we've got a system-wide, a council-wide notification process. We've also strengthened the communication between our schools finance function and the corporate treasury team, so we have a clear understanding of any changes to schools financing that would happen in future. So we do not anticipate this issue or similar issues having an impact in the future.
Okay, thanks, David.
Yeah, can I just ask? I mean, we had to borrow 25 million. How much did it cost us?
Overall, the entire cost was about £1.4 million.
£1.4 million.
£1.4 million. What we find is that because we were approaching the year end, councils' income levels drop off because, as I'm sure most people are aware, the majority of people pay their council tax by direct debit, and you don't pay for 12 months. There's a couple of months where the direct debit doesn't come out. So councils' cash flow gradually reduces as we get to the end of the year. Many councils across the country will find themselves in the same position whereby they've not been aware of the changes to the funding from the Department of Education. So what we found is essentially it was a lender's market. So we found that the rates had gone up, but also we had to borrow for slightly longer than we would have wanted to. So rather than borrowing for 3 months, for instance, we might have to borrow for 6 months or 9 months. What we did was we took a very prudent, cautious approach and made sure that we fully covered ourselves. We probably could have got away with £20 million worth of borrowing, but we took a little bit extra out just to ensure that we didn't hit any issues that would impact on service delivery. Can
I just ask then? Obviously, you're saying, Graham, that we covered it with interest payments of other items, but wasn't our fault. I mean, it was DFE who made a dog's dinner of it, and it's cost us 1.4 million. Is there any redress from our illustrious friends in central government saying, you cost us this money, can we have it back, please?
I think the answer to that would be a no. I think that the Department of Education would argue that the internal communication at councils should have dealt with this. That would be their point of view. Like I say, Bolton Council were not the only council who had this issue. So it is quite clearly something that's affected many organisations.
Called passing the buck.
It's literally updating a mailing list, isn't it? It's literally as simple as that. Some civil servant finance officer has just not used it. Well, there is a mailing list. Obviously, we're aware of that. They've just not used the correct one, and it's just a silly, simple mistake that cost us £1 million. And the fact that we're prudent with our investments income, we're able to cover it right at year end. And if we hadn't had that, we would have gone over the line, wouldn't we? Right at year end. So thank you for keeping your eye on it.
I mean, the thing is, we were fortunate that we had income coming in from other investments.
Yeah.
Well, if you times that by the number of education authorities up and down the country, say from 500,000 low end, to some authorities with even more related school grant, that's probably about 100 million sloshing around in the accounts.
Yeah.
Can I just ask another question generally about the accounts and stuff like that? I mean, I'm no doubt all of us get people who say, "Oh, somebody should audit the council's," usual keyboard warrior about financial accounting, etc. Does anybody ever ask about the council's financial thing? I get people. I say, "Well, all the information's available. It's on the website every quarter. There's financial reports like we have today." Does anybody ever ask? Or am I wasting my time telling people to go and check all these things?
So in terms of public freedom of information requests, we do get some come through. We do get some regular queries, but there's not a great deal of volume there. Obviously, the Treasury activity is part of the audit by the external auditors every year, so they do request full information and go through a full audit of our Treasury management and activity. So so there are questions asked about it, yes.
Yeah, but not a vast amount.
It does occur, and I'm sure the Councillor Grant will give us some information on this.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. I'm one of those who regularly badger the finance for, particularly over GM, over their funding in and out to us. So I actually harass all 10 authorities, and every year I have a spreadsheet building up a history of finances. More recently, I have downloaded all of the council ones as well, of everything over £500 that are publicly available, but it's revealing some interesting stuff that we could probably do with drilling into. But that's my pet projects when I've got nothing to do. I have no life. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for sharing that. If there's not any other comments, I can note that report and go on to the final item at the agenda, which is the capital contract for the Revenues and Benefits Academy IT system, and that's Mr. Remmer.
Yeah, thank you, leaders. So this is the system that we use to deliver revenues and benefits. There's only really 3 suppliers in the country that provide these systems. There's Capita, Northgate and Civica. Authorities don't tend to move from providers because the level of risk involved in that, you can imagine the data transfer or the other issues that are involved. So what we're able to do, and I think this is what we're looking for approval for today, is call off a contract through an existing framework, the KCS framework. So it's really just to ask for permission of VCM for us to progress that.
Sorry, Councillor Grant.
Thank you, Nick. Just a quick one. I'm a big proponent. If something's not broke, don't fix it. However, I noticed there aren't any financials in this report. How much it's costing us? Has it increased from the previous contract that we had? Wondering if we had that information or whether that was commercially sensitive kind of thing, and we might get that in a separate document.
Yeah, so I think the reason for that is at the moment we're taking this opportunity. So we want a few different products within our core contract with them. So we have an account meeting with them on a regular basis. So we're looking effectively to get a bit more for our money. So once we've sort of carried out that negotiation with them, we will be able to confirm the figure. What I can tell you is that it's budgeted for in the budget. So what we won't be looking for is any additional money for this. But I think what we will be looking for is some additional functionality within the contract for us. So we will be able to confirm that figure once we've got that for you.
Thanks, Phil.
Thanks, Phil. Any further comments? Okay, if not, I can approve that report, and that concludes the meeting. Thanks very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers.
See you soon.